You know what it is? I came from a toxic family.
But here's the thing. That's what I was going to say. So you're saying like, oh, yeah, it's too toxic and people want to raise a family. But sometimes it is toxic. But guess what? You're part of what makes it toxic. You're running away from it, trying to think like, oh, the other person is the only toxic one.
They think the same about you.
You're contributing to the toxicity.
You may be the toxic
And this is the beautiful thing about marriage. Marriage can be like that too. Marriage can become like that too. Nobody starts that way. People always get married with the hopes of all the positive things and the love and the frivolousness of marriage and the lust and it's there, right? But then people don't count the cost of, oh, well, what is it going to require for me to keep that? And so it can build and become toxic over time, especially if you're allowing other people to partake in your emotional side and that you're not giving that fully to your spouse, or you're allowing other people to take in your physical side. You're not giving yourself fully to your spouse. That's going to impact your marriage. And I think people don't really think about those things. Yeah. And then so over time, marriage becomes toxic or family relationships become toxic. But if it's toxic, you're part of it. And maybe that other person does have issues. But here's the beautiful thing about marriage, right? And this was the point. God calls us to be together and till death do us part. So the whole intent is that you learn to love the person the way Jesus loves you, meaning unconditionally, meaning in their worst moments, meaning if they're toxic, you still learn to love that person. The Bible says love covers a multitude of sins. So like, in spite of what that toxic person is, like, how do you just continue to love them? And we try to take the easy road out. Let me just walk away. Let me just walk away from the marriage. Let me just walk away from my family.
But there's times to walk
that's
away.
Toxic.
But here's the thing. I think what people pause and be like, oh yeah, well, you know, we're not talking about those.
It's obvious
extreme,
it's obvious when it's time to walk away.
We're not talking about
like if there's physical abuse, like walk away from that.
Like let's not get distracted. Yeah. We're not talking about that. You know, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
What we are talking about is there are times when it does get difficult, and I think what we've learned is, I know for me specifically, I realized that some of the things that were contributing to the toxicness was my own trauma from that toxic family that you're running away from.
That you still encounter, you still love.
But we don't realize that it becomes part of us. Yeah. It becomes part of our personality, part of our identity, part of who we are. And so a lot of the times in your relationship, that person could be triggering things that you're not even aware that they're triggering. And
they're not aware that they're triggering.
And they're not even aware that they're triggering. And so sometimes you're having these clashes and you don't know why. You think it's the other person or the other person think it's you. And oftentimes what you guys are stumbling on is your landmines of things that your actual brain is remembering from childhood, from past relationships, and it goes into self-defense mode. Like, oh my gosh, I'm remembering you just said this thing, and this person may not even be doing that.
Yeah, and you're not even actively thinking it.
You're not even actively thinking it at all. But what happens is, let's say he says something. Let's say he says, I'm just saying something weird. Let's say he says, you're nutty, right? And you're like, and he thinks, oh, that's not a big deal. But you're like, oh, I can't believe he said I'm nutty. And it could be someone in your past or whatever when you were younger that would smack you and say you're nutty.
So that's actually a real thing for us.
Is it?
Yeah, because I used to be like, yo, stop acting crazy.
Oh, I just had that moment.
And so something would trigger inside of you when I would say, like, I wouldn't say you're crazy. Okay, I think I probably started by saying you're crazy, right? Because things will be happening.
I bet you want to see crazy.
Toxic things will happen, and I would be like, "That's crazy." Like from my paradigm, that was crazy.
And you're crazy.
And
you would
I would say you're crazy, and so you would get very highly offended by that.
I would get angry.
So then I changed it. Later on, I would be, well, stop acting crazy.
But here's the thing.
Or I'll say, that was crazy.
But here's what's crazy. Here's what's nuts.
It would trigger, all three would trigger you.
But here's the thing. You already know that you shouldn't say crazy, but in that moment, you're still like, I'm going to say it anyway.
No. See, I didn't know I shouldn't say crazy. I thought.
So then why did you change it up?
No, because you were saying, don't call me crazy. So then I'll be like, okay, cool. I'm not going to call you crazy. I'm going to call what you did crazy because that was crazy.
And I'm like, you want me to act crazy? You want me to be crazy? I can show you crazy.
And it was
familiar?
like, and I'd be like, yeah, that was familiar. It's because so my immediate response was like, you know what? Internally, I'll be like, I don't want to see you're crazy. let me just kind of back down. But it wasn't like that. And I think men might hear that and be like, oh yeah, you weak and all that. So no, it's like, it's not weakness. It's learning how to navigate the relationship, navigate the personality, navigate the conversation in a healthy way where I'm building my family up, not allowing my family to be torn down because of words. That's just, you know what I'm saying? Like when you think about it, people's families are being torn down because of words. Literal just words. Yeah. Words that are being triggered that in my mind, if she calls me crazy or calls what I did crazy, I'm not thinking, but I'm trying to treat her in the manner in which I'm wired.
Exactly.
Based on my paradigm, based on my experiences. She's not me. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people face when they're like afraid to get in relationships or in relationships and it's not working out. Is like the person, your spouse isn't you, your fiance isn't you.
Yeah.
So you have to understand who they are. And what I learned was, okay, just don't say the word crazy.
It's okay. Like, but here's the thing. I think for some people it might be like, well, I want to be able to say what I want, so I don't want to be in a relationship. Don't.
But that's the problem.
If you want to say what you want, then you should not be in a relationship. That's a good idea.
And
but it's love.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I love you. If you truly love someone, then you consider them what it takes to knowing what tears them down and to avoid those things, and knowing what builds them up, and to cultivate those things. Yeah. And it's a learning, and after a while it becomes easier. And it's the same thing with children, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say after 14 years in, I love our family. My family does not resemble anything like my
family of origin.
My family of origin. I still love my family of origin. I love them from a distance. And they will say the same thing about me. And they will say that we will all say that about everyone. So it's not like I'm not like the only one that's like, I don't want to be. No, we have all decided and determined that we are better apart. And let's meet once in a while in the middle, and then we have rules. But you know, it's broken. Yeah. You know, and we've all created our own separate units.
You've learned a healthy balance.
We've learned a healthy balance, and now I love what we've created, and I want to keep adding to it.
Yeah, and we teach and we train our kids from young, like, hey, you guys are gonna get older one day. Like, understand and see some of the flaws that we have with our siblings, with our parents, and those dynamics when we have family. And you don't have to live in those same mistakes.